Tonight, Mr. Trump's longtime friend David Pecker, the former publisher of the National Enquirer, offering the jury a rare glimpse into the underworld of tabloid tactics as the state seeks to prove the former president doctored his internal business records to cover up the payoff of an adult film actress just days before the 2016 election.
Mr. Trump, what do you think of David Pecker?
Pecker describing a meeting at Trump Tower in 2015 with Mr. Trump and his former fixer Michael Cohen, where Pecker says he agreed to serve as the eyes and ears for rumors that could hurt Mr. Trump, adding, "What I would do is publish positive stories about Trump and publish negative stories about his opponents." The prosecution then showing the jury a series of glowing headlines about then-candidate Trump and derogatory ones making baseless claims about Mr. Trump's Republican opponents, including Ted Cruz. Pecker admitting today the Enquirer made up a story linking Cruz's father to the man who assassinated JFK. Pecker also testifying his company paid a doorman $30,000 for a completely untrue story about Mr. Trump fathering a child with his housekeeper, so the doorman couldn't take the story elsewhere, trying to save Mr. Trump and the campaign the potential embarrassment. The day began with the judge taking the defense team to task over Mr. Trump's posts on social media, targeting Cohen and Stormy Daniels. The state seeking to hold Mr. Trump in criminal contempt for violating the judge's gag order that bars him from attacking trial witnesses.
So they can talk about me, they can say whatever they want, they can lie, but I'm not allowed to say anything. I'd love to say everything that's on my mind.
In court, the defense arguing Mr. Trump should be permitted to respond to political attacks, and the gag order should not cover reposts of someone else. The judge didn't rule today, but seemed exasperated, telling lead defense attorney Todd Blanche, "You are losing all credibility with the court." Minutes later, during a break, Mr. Trump back on Truth Social, falsely writing the judge had taken away his right to free speech. This is a kangaroo court.
And Laura, you were in the courtroom today. What were some of your impressions?
Well, Lester, this jury is engaged. They're paying attention. They're looking at the exhibits on the screen in front of them. They're listening carefully to the witness, David Pecker. Some of them I even saw taking notes, and they will hear more from Pecker when he testifies again on Thursday. Lester?
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.